Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called the killing of 4 members of a Pakistani origin Muslim family in Ontario as an act of terrorism. Speaking in the House of Commons after observing a moment of silence, Trudeau promised to take more action to dismantle far-right groups. The 4 were killed on Sunday when a man rammed his truck into them in a targeted attack because of their religion. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has earlier described the attack as an act of terrorism and urged the world to combat growing Islamophobia in the West. In The Hague, the UN court has rejected an appeal of former Bosnian Serb military commander Ratko Mladic against his genocide conviction for the 1995 Srebrenica massacre. Known as the Butcher of Bosnia, Mladic was jailed for life in 2017 for his role in the killing of 8,000 Muslims during the Bosnia War. He was arrested in 2011 after 16 years on the run. The UN says around 100,000 people have been displaced in Myanmar's Kaya state by recent violence as the military struggles to restore order. In a statement, the UN office in Myanmar expressed concern over the rapidly deteriorating security and humanitarian situation. The statement comes a day after a meeting of ASEAN foreign ministers pressed Myanmar's military to restore democracy. India's COVID-19 death toll has topped 350,000 after over 2,100 people died overnight. New cases in the country have fallen below the 100,000 mark for the first time in 68 days, with nearly 87,000 new infections. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 56 deaths and nearly 1,400 COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.7 million lives and infected over 173 million people so far. And in tennis, Tamara Zidansek has become the first Slovenian woman to reach the semi-finals of the French Open after beating Paula Badosa by 2-1. She will next face Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova for a spot in the final on Saturday. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called the killing of 4 members of a Pakistani origin Muslim family in Ontario an act of terrorism. Speaking in the House of Commons after observing a moment of silence, Trudeau promised to take more action to dismantle far-right groups. The 4 were killed on Sunday when a man rammed his truck into them in a targeted attack because of their religion. The victims include 3 females and a male, while a 9-year-old child was hospitalized with serious injuries. Police have charged the suspect with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has earlier described the attack as an act of terrorism and urged the world to combat growing Islamophobia in the West. In The Hague, the UN court has rejected an appeal of former Bosnian Serb military leader Ratko Mladic against his genocide conviction for the 1995 Srebrenica massacre. Around 8,000 Muslim men and boys were killed in the massacre during the Bosnia War between 1992 and 95. Known as the Butcher of Bosnia, Mladic was convicted in 2017 on charges of genocide and crimes against humanity and sentenced to life imprisonment. He was one of the last suspects to face trial at the UN's court for the former Yugoslavia. He was arrested in 2011 after 16 years on the run. The verdict by the 5 judges at the UN court is final and cannot be appealed any further, meaning Mladic will continue to serve out a life sentence in prison. The Afghan government says the Daulat Shah district in the northern Faryab province has fallen to the Taliban. A provincial council member said the security forces have evacuated the district after heavy clashes with the Taliban. This comes a day after the Taliban took control of a key district in western Ghor province. Meanwhile, the Taliban claimed to have killed 8 Afghan soldiers and conquered a checkpost in Logar province. A Taliban spokesman said a fighter was also killed in the clashes in Patkhab Shane area. Afghanistan is witnessing a surge in violence amid withdrawal of the US and NATO forces from the war-torn country. NATO says it may train Afghan soldiers in other countries after the withdrawal of the forces. In an interview, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said NATO will remain committed to Afghan peace, but not militarily. He also called on the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at Pentagon. Stoltenberg said alliance will continue to provide support to the Afghans with continued civilian presence. Meanwhile, Austin said Washington remained committed to assist NATO partners in Afghanistan despite troops pullout. He said the ongoing withdrawal of the forces from the country by September is proceeding well. Earlier, Central Command head General Kenneth McKenzie said the US has completed about half of its withdrawal. The UN says around 100,000 people have been displaced in Myanmar's Kaya state by recent violence as the military struggles to restore order. In a statement, the UN office in Myanmar expressed concern over the rapidly deteriorating security and humanitarian situation. The statement comes a day after a meeting of ASEAN foreign ministers pressed Myanmar's military to restore democracy. The ministers expressed disappointment at the meeting in China at the slow progress made by Myanmar on its proposal for ending the turmoil. But the military-appointed foreign minister has defended its plan for restoring democracy despite the killing of over 850 people since the coup in February. China has warned the US against pursuing a trade deal with Taiwan after Washington signaled a resumption of economic talks. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian urged the US to stop any form of official exchanges with Taiwan. Lijian said the US must handle the Taiwan issue cautiously and refrain from sending wrong signals to Taiwan independence forces. This comes as Washington stepped up support for Taiwan, approving new arms sales and sending high-level delegations. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a congressional hearing, said the talks will soon begin on a trade deal. He added that the U.S. is committed to the proposition that Taiwan must have the means to defend itself. Iran has warned that the recent unconstructive approach of the UN nuclear watchdog will harm ties. This comes after IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi said Tehran must explain the uranium detected at its sites. Speaking to the media, Iran's envoy Kazim Gharibabadi said there is no consistency between the report and the history of relations. He said Grossi's recent position reflects the nuclear monitoring body's unilateral attitude towards Iran. The envoy said the body must remain far from any political agenda and pick a clear stance on Israel's nuclear threat. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also warned that Iran's nuclear program is progressing rapidly. The UK has restated its promises to tackle shared security challenges with Saudi Arabia, including Iranian threats and the Yemen war. UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab met Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and other officials in Riyadh. In a statement, the Foreign Office quoted Raab as saying that Saudi Arabia is a long-standing partner and a close friend. It said he raised human rights concerns notably around justice reform and freedom of media expression. London said the meeting also focused on global issues, including trade and climate change. The Israeli occupying forces have demolished dozens of Palestinian homes in the occupied West Bank. Witnesses say the army destroyed an entire Palestinian neighborhood in the Al-Murajat region east of Ramallah. Meanwhile, illegal Israeli settlers, accompanied by occupying troops, also razed a historic neighborhood near Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron. Palestinian media said the settlers bulldozed 400 square meters of construction near the mosque. Meanwhile, Israeli troops also arrested at least 17 Palestinians from their homes in several parts of the occupied West Bank. French President Emmanuel Macron has been slapped in the face on an official visit to the southeast of France. Macron's security entourage quickly intervened to pull the man to the ground and move the president away from him. 2 men have been arrested in the wake of the incident. French Prime Minister Jean Castex said the incident was an affront to democracy. Germany has called on the European Union to abolish the right of member states to veto foreign policy measures. This comes after Hungary blocked an EU statement on Hong Kong. Foreign Minister Heiko Maas told a conference in Berlin that the EU cannot be held hostage. Maas said this measure also risks the cohesion of Europe and it has to go. His remarks amount to a highly unusual rebuke of a fellow member state by Germany. India's death toll from COVID-19 has exceeded 350,000 after more than 2,100 people died overnight. But daily cases have fallen below the 100,000 mark for the first time in 66 days, with 86,000 new infections. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.7 million lives and infected 173 million people so far. More in this report.
The transmission of new coronavirus variants and slow vaccine rollout due to shortages and shipment delays are harming global efforts against COVID-19. The World Health Organization says African countries are looking down the barrel of a third wave with the supply of vaccines halted. India has now detected a new variant that is likely to cause severe symptoms. The country's immunization drive is also struggling to keep pace with demand. The World Health Organization says vaccine inequity has created a two-track pandemic for the rich and the developing world.
Increasingly, we see a two-track pandemic. Many countries still face an extremely dangerous situation, while some of those with the highest vaccination rates are starting to talk about ending restrictions.
Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal says a U.S. report on the origins of the virus blames a lab in Wuhan for leaking the virus. But Beijing has told Washington to stop slandering China.
Tracing the origin of the virus is a scientific matter that should be studied by scientists worldwide in collaboration, rather than be politicized. WHO experts have reached clear conclusions on this already. China has twice invited WHO experts in for origin study in an open and transparent manner. The WHO released the report of the WHO-China Joint Study of the Origins in March, compiled in line with WHO procedures and following science-based methods. It was an authoritative and scientific report.
Elsewhere in Asia, after months of lag, South Korea's vaccination drive has finally picked up speed. The daily new virus cases, however, remained in the 400s for the second straight day. Over in Japan, a top virologist and government advisor has warned of the risks of transmission of coronavirus infections during the Tokyo Olympics.
Pakistan continues to report a decline in coronavirus cases, with nearly 1,400 people testing positive overnight. The country's positivity rate has dropped under 3% for the first time in almost 4 months. The total number of infections has surpassed 935,000, with over 867,000 recoveries. The Health Ministry has recorded 53 more deaths due to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. It said the country's death toll is approaching 21,400. There are over 46,000 active cases in the country at present. Nearly 3,200 of them are critical. In Pakistan, the death toll from the collision of 2 passenger trains in Sindh province has risen to at least 63. Over 100 people were injured when a passenger train smashed into derailed carriages of another train near Ghotki city. The rescue operation is still underway at the crash site. The authorities have cleared the tracks hours after the deadly collision took place. The army and the rangers, along with the military doctors and paramedics, are participating in the rescue operation. Meanwhile, an investigation committee has been formed to probe into the accident. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. At least 27 people have been killed and many others wounded after gunmen stormed a marketplace and a football field in central Nigeria. Police said that an investigation into the motives of the attack was ongoing. Heavily armed criminal gangs in northwest and central Nigeria have stepped up attacks on schools, kidnapping hundreds of students for ransom. Last week, at least 88 people were killed when gunmen on motorcycles attacked 7 villages in the northwestern Kebbi state. Lightning strikes have killed 27 people in India's West Bengal state. Officials said most of the victims were farmers who were working in the fields late Monday. Separately, 8 passengers were injured when a flight from Mumbai to Kolkata was caught in a monsoon storm just before landing. Summer storms accompanied by strong winds are common in India ahead of the rainy monsoon season. Nearly 2,900 people were killed by lightning in 2019. Multiple major websites are now back online after an apparent outage at the cloud service company Fastly. Dozens of sites, including the New York Times, CNN, Reddit, The Guardian, and the UK government's homepage, could not be reached. Fastly is a cloud computing provider which underpins a lot of major websites. It reported a disruption from a service configuration which has now been patched, but said customers may experience increased origin load as global services return. The UN Security Council backed Secretary General Antonio Guterres for a second term. The body recommended the General Assembly to reappoint him for another 5 years. Guterres succeeded Ban Ki-moon in January 2017, just weeks before former US President Donald Trump took office. Much of his first term was focused on placating Trump, who questioned the value of the United Nations and multilateralism. Guterres served as the Prime Minister of Portugal from 1995 to 2002 and then headed the UN Refugee Agency from 2005 to 2015. Estonia's UN Ambassador Sven Jurgensen said the General Assembly is likely to make the appointment on the 18th of June. The US says it has recovered a part of the ransom paid in the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack last month. The pipeline paid nearly $5 million to regain access after the hack disrupted supplies, causing fuel shortages. The Justice Department says investigators seized 63.7 bitcoins worth around $2.3 million. According to an affidavit filed, the FBI gained possession of a private key to unlock a Bitcoin wallet that received most of the funds. Talking to reporters, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said Washington turned the tables on the hackers.
Look, the message we are sending today is that if you come forward and work with law enforcement, we may be able to take the type of action that we took today to deprive the criminal actors of what they're going after here, which is the proceeds of their criminal scheme. We cannot guarantee, and we may not be able to do this in every instance.
The US authorities, along with the Australian and the European security agencies, have arrested hundreds of suspected criminals in 18 countries. Under Operation Ironside, the FBI, Europol, and other agencies detained the suspects involved in global narcotics trade. More in this report.
Operation Ironside by Australian police and the US Federal Bureau of Investigation ensnared suspects in Australia, Asia, South America and the Middle East involved in the global narcotics trade. They hacked into an app used by criminals to read millions of encrypted messages, leading to hundreds of arrests.
Today, the Australian government, as part of a global operation, has struck a heavy blow against organised crime, not just in this country, but one that will echo around organised crime around the world. This is a watershed moment in Australian law enforcement history.
During the operation, a record number of arrest warrants was issued in Australia in one day, leading to 224 arrests. The police seized 104 firearms, almost $35 million in cash, and filed 525 charges. Moreover, New Zealand made 35 arrests and filed over 900 charges.
This really came about from an operation that we commenced in 2018 called Operation Van. This focused on a transnational organised crime group primarily linked to international members of the Comancheros, intent on importing what we would say large quantities of methamphetamine and tonnage of cocaine into New Zealand.
They also seized assets worth $2.4 million. Many more arrests are expected in the coming weeks as Australian police plan to continue the global crackdown.
World Oceans Day is being observed to raise awareness about the impact of human activity on marine life. It is an effort to mobilize people for a project for the sustainable management of the oceans.
The UN says 1 in 10 people rely on the fishing industry to make a living. However, 30% of fishing waters are overfished. So the world body has set this year's theme for the day as the ocean life and livelihoods. In a message, it said everyone needs to play their role, be it from eating local, sustainably sourced fish to stopping plastic pollution. Pakistan's Naval Chief Admiral Mohammad Amjad Khan Niazi has released a message on the occasion. He said Pakistan Navy has taken key steps to promote the safety and sustainability of ocean resources. Some of these initiatives include beach cleaning, construction of harbor debris collection barges, and banning fishing nets.
In Indonesia, fishermen are fearing fewer catches and environmental damage as tin miners are now targeting the ocean amid the depleting land reserves. Details in this report.
Diesel generators amid black plumes as steel pipes ram into the seafloor to extract sand, which is sifted for tin ore. Amid thinning land reserves, Indonesia's tin miners are turning to the sea near islands of the southeast coast of Sumatra Island. According to an environmental group, the practice threatens the biodiversity of nearby coast while disrupting the livelihood of local fishermen.
The impact on us from the mining is incredible, as you can tell by the shrinking of our catch. We used to get at least 10 kilograms in a day, now only 2 kilograms. And sometimes we come back with nothing, because the location has been destroyed by an illegal mining site.
Indonesia is the world's biggest exporter of tin, which is used in everything from food packaging to electronics and now green technologies. High tin prices driven by global demand for electronics manufacturing has kept miners with and without licenses busy in mining.
It's been 20 years that people have been doing illegal mining activity on land or sea. This has caused conflicts in society, especially with the fishermen. Also, more importantly, on the environmental impact, mining sites along the coast have caused damages to mangroves.
The miners are paid around $4.90 to $5.60 per kilogram of tin sand they mine with the pontoon, producing about 50 kilograms a day.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. America's oldest male chimpanzee, Kobe, has died at the age of 63. Nicknamed Papa, he was a charismatic and compassionate mentor for the zoo's newly acquired chimps. Before being placed at the zoo with 3 women in the 1960s, Kobe was a human-reared performing chimpanzee. As a result, he formed similarly strong relationships with his zoo caregivers. The average life expectancy for chimpanzees is 33 years in the wild and 50 to 60 years under human care. Chimpanzees are an endangered species with a wild population of 100,000 to 200,000 individuals. Royal frogs, including the wedding dress of the late Princess of Wales, Diana, are on display in London. More in this report.
The voluminous ivory dress Princess Diana wore at her marriage in 1981 has gone on display in London. The bodice gown, having a 25-foot train, has been loaned from her sons, Princes William and Harry.
Diana, Princess of Wales' wedding dress has been very generously lent to us by the Duke of Cambridge and the Duke of Sussex. It has been seen before, but this is the first time in 25 years that it's been shown at Diana, Princess of Wales' former home at Kensington Palace.
The Royal Style in the Making show focuses on the work of designers who dressed not just Diana, but also Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother. Other items on show include a rare surviving toil for a gown worn by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, for King George VI's coronation in 1937.
Perhaps one of my favourite exhibits in the exhibition is a Georgian-style dress created for Princess Margaret. She wore it to a costume ball at the Mansion House in 1964 in aid of one of her favourite charities, the St John Ambulance. It was designed by her uncle by marriage, Oliver Messel, the greatest theatrical designer of the 20th century.
The exhibition, which runs until January, is at Kensington Palace, where Diana lived until she died in 1997.
In other business updates, the U.S. stocks have fallen as investors await new inflation signals later this week following last week's jobs report. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite fell nearly 0.25% at open, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index opened close to 0.5% down. The S&P 500 also fell nearly 0.5% down at open. Meanwhile, oil prices rose as overall optimism about recovering demand outweighed profit and the impacts of the stronger US dollar. In the French Open, Tamara Zidansek has become the first Slovenian woman to reach the semi-finals of the French Open after beating Paula Badosa by 2-1. She prevailed in the third set, saving 3 break points to lead 7-6 before breaking Badosa to seal the win. The world number 85 has never been beyond the second round of the major competition. Zidansek will next face Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova for a spot in the final on Saturday. Pakistan's pacer Hassan Ali has been nominated by the International Cricket Council for the Player of the Month. Ali's stunning performance against Zimbabwe helped him make it into the final 3 players on the list for the month of May. Other nominees include Sri Lanka's Praveen Jayavikrama and Bangladesh's Mushfiqur Rahim. Hassan Ali secured 14 test match wickets with a strike rate of 8.92. He will be the second consecutive Pakistani player to bag the title if he wins. Earlier, Pakistan skipper Babar Azam was declared ICC Player of the Month for April 2021. Manchester United midfielder Donny van de Beek will miss the Netherlands Euro 2020 campaign due to a groin injury. The 24-year-old has endured a difficult first season at United, making just 4 league starts after signing from Ajax last summer. Van de Beek has won 19 caps and last played for his country in the 7-0 win against Gibraltar. The Netherlands head coach Frank de Boer has not replaced the midfielder in his squad. The Dutch team will begin their Group C campaign against the Ukraine in Amsterdam on Sunday. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.